Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Lives, our weekly chat about everything live streaming, where we interview content creators from different backgrounds and let them share their live streaming journey. We have a very cool show for you today. We're going to be talking about YouTube live streaming. So welcome, everybody, and please tune in. Send us your questions. We are super excited to talk to Warren from YouTube today. Just real quick here, this show is powered by Restream Studio. This is how we run our show. It's probably the easiest way to go live on multiple platforms at the same time without any technical complications, encoders, and other difficult things. Just go live directly from your browser, play pre-roll ads. You can have guests. You can highlight the community comments. If you're looking for your own live show, check it out right here. Oh, still cannot get used to this. Right here, restream.io/studio. My guest today is Warren Reid. He is the live solutions specialist at YouTube, and he is also going under Live Streaming Ninja. Hey, Warren, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Anya?
Good.
Awesome
How about
to
you?
be here. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This is super cool.
Awesome. It's so good to have you, and we have so many cool things to talk to you about today.
Let's do it.
Of course, yeah, let's just get into this, jump straight into it. We have so much to cover. Guys, everyone in the chat, welcome. Say hello, say where you're from. Let me know if you have any questions for Restream or for YouTube live streaming. We are here to answer all of your questions. So we are going to be taking them kind of in the middle of the show, so you don't have to wait till the very end. But please start submitting and asking everything you need to know. We're here to uncover all the mysteries and secrets.
I'll see what I can do. I don't know. There's no magic to it.
Right. Yeah, like that anticipation built, right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get started with your personal journey. How did you get into the world of live streaming yourself?
Oh man, so it started probably around like 2010, 2011. I was just like live streaming myself, playing piano to whoever would watch and whoever would join the chat, and we would have a conversation about a million things: video games, politics, news, whatever was going on, sports. And it was very, throwback Adobe FMLE sort of capture and streaming back when you had to actually like send multiple bit rates from your encoder if you wanted multiple bit rates to show up. And in doing that, I learned a lot about basically rough streaming and what it takes to go live and just kind of keep a captive audience. And I saw a posting. So there's basically like a longer arc there, but my professional streaming career didn't really start until the like Occupy Wall Street sort of era, when people were doing a lot of street streaming with mobile apps there. And just in sitting and thinking about ways I can help people basically democratize streaming, I saw an opening for a company then called Ustream, which I applied and got the job, and then sort of started my career in streaming back then. So whether it was like visiting the chat, I'm definitely very guilty of trolling other people's chat. Back then, it would just kind of go from one stream to the other and see what people were doing, because it was more like personal vlogs and less like official content. And it was pretty fun, and definitely learned a lot during that time that helps me to this day.
So how did you end up with YouTube live streaming solutions team?
So YouTube live stream is an interesting point in my career when the company I worked for decided to move away from content and move more to SaaS, sort of like software as a service, and sell to businesses directly. And that changes the content that you see, and it really didn't like have my interest. Almost coincidentally, YouTube was opening up and hiring for that same position. And at that time, there wasn't really a lot of knowledge or expertise in the field. So I knew if I could just like get my resume in, or like, talk to somebody, I could probably be in a good position to start a career here. But it was definitely sort of seeing the future of streaming was kind of aligned with my own interest here at YouTube. So it made a natural fit. I shot an arrow into the dark, and thankfully it landed on a tree.
That's awesome. I like that analogy. That sounds pretty dope. Um, so fast forward to 2020 to today. What is YouTube live streaming solutions team is focusing the most now when you've been with the company for quite a while and you've been involved?
Yeah, the YouTube Live Solutions team is basically an all-encompassing team, and that's where we get that's where I sort of steal the term ninjas from, because we're always a part of some of the largest live streams on the platform. You don't even know that we're there. And a large part of our job, 50%, I would say, is making sure that these large broadcasts, music festivals, sporting events that happen, whether they're creators or brands, go through seamlessly, and that people are thinking about the things that they shouldn't know that they should know. So that they don't accidentally shoot themselves in the foot, right? When you go onto a platform, there's nobody there to essentially onboard you, where we sort of pick up that slack. The second part is we deal a lot and make sure that the ecosystem that YouTube touches is healthy. In talking with vendors like yourself, right? We want to adopt new features. We want to make sure that there are people there to actually use the features, and that there's actually demand for these features that we're building. And the third part of what we do is we educate people internally and externally. We educate brands, partners, creators on what we have and why, in sort of a sales engineering way. One platform has this and another platform has that, what we can do to massage what you're looking to do into the platform. And we also train internal teams, because we don't want them out there selling things that we don't have, because then we're on the hook for it. So it's really sort of like a wide net that our small team casts.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of different things, but I really like the onboarding part, because it is a challenge for someone who is just starting live streaming, who is just exploring how to navigate that world, and especially these days. And we will definitely cover that today when live streaming became much more mainstream, like mainstream streaming, so to say. Of course, more people are trying to get into that world and leverage the opportunity of live videos, and yet it is intimidating. It is daunting when you have never done that, and you're like, where do I start, right?
I say onboarding, but really it's mostly confidence boosting, right? Like, people have the tools, they have the know-how, they have the production gear. Most people have the tools in their house watching right now to stream a professional stream, but they're just, for some reason, really hesitant to hit that start streaming button. So I'm just like, go there, do that. You're going to be fine. You see, nothing's blown up, right? Like,
yeah.
There are no fires. Everything's cool.
Yeah, I 100% hear you on that. Like, a lot of times, your main issue, like the main thing that you're missing to start live streaming, is just doing that, just actually pressing that button. That's the only technology that's stopping you from going live. But let's kind of talk a little bit about gear. I think it's a good kind of like nice transition. What you said earlier, that most people already have everything they need to start live streaming in their house today. What are the essentials, like the absolute must-haves for those who are just starting on YouTube Live?
It's going to sound really cliche, but the must-haves are either a computer, a phone, and a stable internet connection, right? Everything else that you would put into there is just flavor and window dressing, right? You don't need, with platforms like Restream, right? You don't need a software. Everything is done in the cloud for you. With webcam on YouTube, you don't need an encoder. With your phone, you don't need to download anything additionally. But as you stream more, you'll realize that, hey, maybe I want a lower third, maybe I want an asset, maybe I want this little ticker down below. And then that's when you start to integrate the tools that you have. But really, the only thing you really need is a device, an internet connection, and good content. And then everything else shapes around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to acknowledge the comments here a little bit, I see a lot of people already starting the copyright question. We are going to cover this a little bit. I do have that plan. We're going to ask Warren about copyright issues, and specifically, like, what are the steps that creators should take in order to get that right. And we will probably have some helpful resources for you as well. So if Warren would direct you into reading something online, I will also share those resources with you after the stream, so you can click and see that.
Absolutely. I'm so whatever I say here is, I am basically a living help center document. So whatever I say, I'm going to share a link with her so that you guys can get follow-up information, because honestly, a lot of figuring this out is finding out where exactly is the source of truth. So we
Exactly.
will help with
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information available. We'll help you navigate that. We will tackle that copyright question later on. Just first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about gear and a little bit about other, YouTube live things. But yeah, we'll get back to you. So please don't leave. The copyright mystery is coming. Is coming on this show for sure. So you mentioned streaming from mobile. Is that something that people could easily do with YouTube Live? They could go live from their phone?
Yes, so you can go live with your phone. Asterisk. There is a stipulation on it for safety. Our primary concern is safety, and one of the caveats we put into that is to have 1,000 subscribers. Right, that means you're entrenched in the community. You're not, creating this stream to do something abrasive with it. With that said, if you stream it from your desktop, webcam, laptop, the barrier for entry is just a 24-hour cool off if you've never streamed to the platform before. So if you're planning to do a stream tomorrow, you need to plan to enable and verify your account today, because you're not going to be able to kickstart that stream for 24 hours.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Does that rule apply to people who are also streaming from their laptops? Don't you always have to have 1,000 followers in order to take advantage of live, or is that just a mobile thing?
That is just a mobile thing, and everybody who has a YouTube channel, as long as you're a good actor in the community, no strikes on your channel, you should be able to go live right now, or as soon after you enable and get verified.
Awesome. Makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about the bitrate and quality of stream on YouTube. I know, especially for platforms like Restream, where we use multi-streaming and people are setting those things up for multiple platforms. Let's face it, the most common is going to be YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Now LinkedIn Live being a thing, that's also adding up. But what would be your recommendation for optimal settings so people get the best quality on YouTube?
So I hope I don't catch flack for saying this, but I am as platform agnostic as I can be working for one of the major platforms. We want your content. It's probably going to wind up on YouTube at some point in your workflow. But we understand that there are constraints. Basically, go where your audience is, and let that be the determining factor as to where you stream. In order to figure out where your audience is, sometimes you have to use a platform like Restream and simulcast to multiple places to see where you get the most viewership. Traditionally, like I said before, if you wanted to stream multiple streams, you would have to do it from your device and send out 5 different streams to 5 different platforms. So that would create some bandwidth constraints that would stress out your CPU, but I'm like super happy for the tool of Restream, because that just completely takes out any of the legwork in doing that. With that said, what the optimal settings for streaming just one single stream out depends on 2 things: the bandwidth you have on your machine, and also the robustness of your machine, right? What are you streaming? I could tell you in general terms that 1080p 3 megabits is sufficient if we're having a conversation like this, right? Not much is going on. It's a static image for most of it and just me and some dull colors. But if you're trying to stream, let's say, League of Legends or Call of Duty, that might not really be sufficient, right? You might want to bump that 1080 bitrate up to about 7 or 8. Additionally, you have to keep in mind what your audience is. It might not be necessary, especially if your machine is struggling, to stream out in 1080, considering that most people are probably going to consume it on a mobile phone. 720 might just be completely sufficient. You save yourself a lot of headache. You save your machine a lot of stress. And that's something that you should probably test out in your workflow before you commit to saying this is going to be 1080p 60 just because I want to hit those marketing buzzwords. Just make sure that you're doing things that aren't adding to your stress. So again, this is one of the links that I can send to you, are YouTube optimized recommended specs for streaming. They are baseline, guide rails. There is definitely some wiggle room in there, as you'll see. So a good rule of thumb for streaming is, if your internet bandwidth is, let's say, 7 megabits upload, because upload is the more important speed. You want to make sure that you don't set a bit rate that's going to be close to that ceiling. Because even though you might set it at constant bit rate, it's not a straight line. It's doing something like this, and that's fully dependent on what the content is, right? So if you've got a holding slate, it's probably pretty low. But if you're playing gameplay, it's probably up around the peak that you've set it at. And inside that wiggle room, you want to make sure that you don't hit that upper barrier of that bitrate 7 megabit bandwidth that you have, because then you're going to start seeing artifacting, buffering issues on your stream. So I would say make sure you at least have double the bandwidth of your pipeline available if you're going to set a bitrate or resolution. I hope that wasn't too wordy, but I think there are some useful tidbits in there.
Yeah, that is gold. That is great, because we are also going to repurpose some parts of this content. So we're going to make little clips and snippets out of it. And I think this is amazing because a lot of people have that question and a lot of people are thinking, okay, so what should I set up? Because there's so many things, especially if you're new to that. I mean, there's only certain things that you can test, but at some point you really kind of want to go live, right? And you want to set yourself up for the most successful stream possible. So like these recommendations of where you should be and what are the numbers that you should look at that are important are absolutely that's priceless. So thanks for sharing.
We joke about like just hitting the go live button, but there is a lot of information that I'm finding. You can learn a lot from the help center, but until you actually do it, there really isn't much that'll get you over that hurdle. So testing, if you don't take away anything else from this conversation, it is testing is your baby. Test absolutely everything. Test the titles underneath the names, test the thumbnails, test the description, test the band, test everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Click on the links that you added in the description, because who knows where they take people. You think you got the right link? Maybe not. So testing.
Even in putting in, like, it's so crazy because like even these massive production companies get it wrong in that, you think you're copy and pasting a stream key in, but really there's a space after the characters in your stream key and it's like not turning on, and it's because you added an additional character that just doesn't make sense to the encoding software. Test everything, guys. Just test everything.
That's awesome. We are actually going to cover some epic fails from streaming from your experience. It could be your own. It could be some of your clients, something that you've seen. I love to share that because I think it's really helpful for people who are just starting to understand that live streaming is one of those creatures where things are not going to go perfect. If you're looking for that picture perfect, everything is nice, polished, and smooth, you're probably better off as edited content and videos on demand, because if you are going to explore lives, it has its benefits. It's the interactive aspect. It is the authenticity, that trustworthy of you being you. You cannot edit things out. You cannot polish it. But at the same time, it's going to go wrong, right? Sometimes things are going to break.
Yeah, absolutely. People want you think as a creator broadcasting, you need to have those jump cuts and those quick edits. It needs to be crisp and polished. But really, like, a lot of your creators like seeing you as a human being and having that interactive aspect to the stream. They like seeing you unpolished and basically unfiltered and raw, because they feel like they're there in the community with you. And another benefit to that too is like when you have a conversation live, it's not like a VOD. The light of the screen isn't just washing over you as you sit there and let the content come, like, just broadcast all over. It's the stream and the chat in the community are having a conversation with each other, right? It's not like a VOD where the comments are happening today and then you get a reply a week later and then somebody replies to that 2 weeks later. Like, the community, even without you broadcaster being there, is actively having a conversation in the chat with each other and with you. So I can't get over engagement enough. And if you're streaming and you're not interacting with the chat, or if you're streaming and you don't have chat turned on, you really need to reconsider why you're streaming in the first place.
Exactly, because that's definitely one of the most beneficial parts, is that interactive and the community feedback loop that you can get from whichever type of content you're streaming, whether it's a game or marketing, product launch, release, or Q&A session, right? Yeah. Q&A session without chat, that's going to be fun. So Let's actually, since we're already here, let's bring up a couple of examples. Like, do you have any like really fun and epic stories of how people, like you mentioned that thing earlier, that when people copy stream key and then they have like a little extra space and like, everything goes down the hill. Any other like really fun moments when someone was like, oh, I got this. And then it's just like, and it could be anything. It could be,
Sure.
things, people showing up in the stream, anything that you can remember that recently like really made you laugh.
Well, yeah. So there are a ton, and I'm involved. There are a lot, and I'm like, what's safe to talk about and what's not, right? Like on a common one that's really fun to talk about is that like someone will have a broadcast and then they'll call me up panicked because like I'm hearing an echo, and we're like, I'm not hearing an echo. Are you hearing an echo, Bob? It's like, no, I'm not hearing an echo. What's going on? Basically, long story short, having to debug this person who's their hair is already on fire. This is their first broadcast, right? They've essentially got 3 different windows up of the same content on their browser, and they're hearing it play back to them, and they're like, this echo has to stop. It's ruining the stream. And we're like, whoa, calm down. How about you just close your browsers? Like, is everything cool? It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So we try to sort of plan ahead for the panicked moments like that. But there are some things that you can't plan for. For instance, I was a part of the Mr. Beast production stream where he did the charity rock, paper, scissors thing. And, sometimes things crash as a result of things that we don't plan for. In this instance, we had to we didn't really plan a contingency for like what happens if this information leaks, basically the staging area for all the creators. So we had to create a new environment to invite them and make sure it was secure because that information had leaked out. So it runs the spectrum, and it is a live production environment. Things like this are going to happen, but you need to roll with it, right? And honestly, the Mr. Beast example, he handled it extremely well. That I want to call him Kid. He's probably like my age. That guy is an extreme pro. But like things like that are going to happen with the stream. You need to have contingency plans, but also like you need to be able to be flexible and roll with it. Like it's not as big a deal as you make it seem.
Awesome. What is your go-to reaction when things go wrong? I mean, there are different ways psychologically people react. Like one thing is being on fire and panic. Another one is freeze and just like not know what to do. Another one is ignore, nothing is happening. Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? Like this giant, Godzilla walking around me. What is your go-to reaction to when things go wrong?
This is a common theme. People have remarked that I'm like super calm when things are on fire. And that's because like I'm thinking of a solution. I'm not like you've brought me on board to think of these solutions so that you can run around with your hair on fire. I don't want to contribute to the emotional outbursts that's happening around me, which there are a ton. But it's definitely, you have to be prepared to, my reaction is calm, and I want to pat myself on the back for that. But inside, I'm like, oh crap. Okay, what do we do? What have we done before? Has this happened before? What have we, and it definitely helps to calm people's expectations in the moment. If you remain calm as well. And I know that's easier said than done. And that comes with practice and testing. Oh, we saw this in testing. How did we address it then?
Yeah, absolutely. For those who are just joining us, I'm seeing more and more people popping up in the chat. Welcome, everybody. My guest today is Warren Reid. He is YouTube's live solutions specialist and a live streaming ninja. We're breaking down how live streaming on YouTube works for you today. So check in, let us know what you'd like to know. Drop your questions in. We're going to get to them as soon as we see your questions. So one thing I had to ask you, I was really curious, basically just based on your experience, because you're so involved in live streaming and you're doing it on one of the major platforms that exists in the world. Are there any live streaming tools, devices, could be software, could be hardware, that came out recently and like really blew your mind that could revolutionize your world if you're a content creator?
Specifically, no. I keep Restream, and then like this live studio, anything done in the cloud is, got my blessing. And the tools have just gotten so much easier to make a professional production with a laptop device. Like if you're playing a game of any sort of decency on your machine, odds are it's also a streaming machine. So specifically, I mean, I can't talk about our current features, but YouTube Live has got some amazing features planned in the future. But in the ecosystem in general, it always blows my mind to like watch the growth, right? From 4K to VR to 180 to automated live captions that YouTube has. Like it's so many nuanced things to watch the trajectory of streaming. I, I am super excited to see what happens in the next 2 to 5 years.
That's awesome. I love captions, by the way. A lot of people are asking about when this is going to be supported by Restream, and we are also actively looking into that direction because I see a lot of value for that. One is for people who are experiencing lives without sound, who are just going to watch and read. Super convenient if you're doing that kind of like as a side multitasking ninja style thing if you're doing a lot of things at the same time. Also for translations in different languages, if you can caption in different languages, that makes your content much more accessible. So yeah, definitely great feature to look into. So let's talk about the difference between YouTube Stream Now and YouTube Events. There's been a lot of talks about that recently. There are conversations about how Stream Now might be going away. A lot of people are not quite sure how events work and how to schedule them. I can see there's even a question right here in our chat. Please, I need to understand how to set up events and schedule them. So let's just kind of cover that difference between Stream Now and events and see what's
okay, I'll see what I can do. So the difference between, in general terms, YouTube is a platform that was traditionally for video that decided to do live. All the other platforms like had live and then considered VOD as an aspect to it. I bring that up at the beginning only because, you know, there are some industry standard things that happen when you think of live first. If you were to go to platform A/Warren, you would expect my channel to be on or off, live or off air, right? So that's kind of the traditional streaming experience as I would put it towards Stream Now. You have a consistent URL that you can go to and the content is either off air or on air. With events, one of the things that we decided to build on with that experience is we allow you to schedule multiple events in advance. So if you're a festival, a multi-day festival, or if you are a streamer who vlogs once a week for the next year and you know you're going to do that, you can schedule that event once a week every year with content and thumbnails so that your viewers can set reminders to those specific events using YouTube events, as opposed to Stream Now, which is just one player page, which allows you to schedule only one event in advance. And we do that because we're thinking about the archive with YouTube events, right? If you were to go to another platform and it's off air and you want to see what you'd missed, you'd have to scroll through their catalog to find out when the last broadcast was. Whereas if I schedule an event, you know, festival day one, and I miss day one, I can still go to that link and the archive of the event starts and plays back for me automatically. So that's basically the difference between Stream Now and events. So with regards to a migration, you probably notice that you're into a new live control room inside YouTube. And that's because we're changing the way things look and we're changing the way things work. Inside that migration, the story there is scalability. So the question came in, how do I go live how do I schedule an event? And the idea with that migration is making it easier for that person to figure out how to go live, basically handhold them throughout all of the steps, right? Our product is growing and we really want to make it easy for the next billion users, both on the infrastructure side and also like on the UI side. Even though, you know, when you go into classic, you see the difference between Stream Now and events and you don't see that inside the new LCR, the functionality of Stream Now is still available through the live API. It's just going to be located different. we want to make sure that we port as many things over into the new UI as possible. Some are going to be on a delayed release, but some are going to be available immediately. And it's kind of, we're only got limited resources. So like, what do we address now, and what do we say we'll wait until next quarter or next year?
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks so much for breaking this down. This is really helpful. So is that right, that Stream Now is eventually going to go away and it's going to be kind of like grandfathered, and the events will kind of like take over?
So I see what you're saying. I'm very hesitant to say like going away, because it'll still be there in spirit, but the name is absolutely not going to exist, because when you go there, you're not going to be able to access, Stream Now. But if inside that feature functionality for a user, a viewer, if you go to, any live channel on the platform right now, if you go to YouTube/channel/code/live, that will take you to their live content. They're consistently live content. So if they're not live, it won't show anything. It'll take you to the channel. But if it is live, it will display their live content that's happening now. So to be fair, there was no real consistent URL, because again, we're planning for the VOD, but now with YouTube/channel/channel code/live, that will always have the channel's live content on it. So that should be your destination page if you're going to drive and promote traffic.
And so for those people who are creating content, there will still be that ability to choose between scheduling the event. Let's say, like, for example, it's Friday Lives. I know today that next Friday, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to be live, right? And I know who my guest is. I know what I'm going to be talking about. So I have the ability to preset that using YouTube events. But should I want to just go live completely just on the whim, right? Because I want it right now, I will still have that ability, even with the new studio and with all the changes, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. That's good to know, and that's important. I actually have a question for you. I'm going to actually display it as a caption, because I did a little bit of a cheating game before this stream happened, because I asked my team from Restream to share if there are any questions that they have for you. And of course, that was also shared with our customer support, which is, kind of like our front line, like our ninjas, so to say, for people who, who interacted with our customers and trying to answer their questions. So here's what they came up with. Let me actually try to show it here as a caption for you. And for that, we'll need to remove this.
So I'm not the expert in all degrees of YouTube or even YouTube Live, but I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, how can users embed standalone player and chat without having to change the URL of it every time, especially if the Stream Now, as it used to be the traditional version of Stream Now, is going to be gone, or, transition.
So unfortunately, you can't do that. The URL code that I had mentioned before, YouTube/channel/live, just add live to the end of your channel page. That'll take you to your live destination, no matter what is live when you schedule it. You can probably test that out now on the Restream page. But we're building for that Friday use case, scheduling in advance. And to do that, you have to create a specific event ID and a specific video URL. And that's the embeddable part of this. So you will need to do the legwork, unfortunately, if you've got a website that you want to embed the content to swap out. So this Friday, I want to embed this here. Next Friday, I need to make sure to embed the next one. Next Friday, I want to make sure to embed the next one.
Awesome. That makes perfect sense. Thanks for sharing. So another question, and I know that, a lot of new changes and new things are coming to YouTube Studio, and you cannot probably talk about all of them because some of them are still in progress. But among the things that you can share and talk about, what are the things that are going to that we should expect as content creators in YouTube Studio, and how are we going to make it better for content creators?
Excuse me. Well, first thing you can't deny is that like it just looks better. No one can change that. I understand the frustration of the migration where you don't know where to find things now, and that's fair. That's going to take some time. But to be honest, like it's meant to. You are the veteran. If you're in there and you notice a change, you are the veteran. So we assume that you're gonna pick it up relatively quickly. It's again to onboard sort of like the new adopters to the platform. But one of the changes you will immediately notice is the changes around the metrics you can see for VOD and also for live. Tracking your performance, also like your community management tools available like night and day. And that transfers over in live in your stream key management system in terms of like custom ingest and settings there. So that's a lot of what you'll immediately notice if you're a regular viewer.
Awesome. Makes sense.
And the goal is to make it easier and better for you, to answer the second part of that question. So those are the changes you'll notice to better manage your community, the metrics, and also like your stream logistics. If you're like Anya and you've got like a regular reoccurring stream.
Yeah. So for applications like Restream, can we count on kind of like a nice and smooth integration with the new studio and for all the users that are going live on YouTube via Restream?
I hope so, and I really want to, and that's part of my de facto like job DevRel hat sort of deal, to meet with your team on a semi-regular basis to see what those pain points are and to see, to let you guys know of potential changes so that you're not planning for something that we don't plan on supporting, and also making sure that the integration is as smooth as it can be so that when we're ready to launch, you're also ready to launch and you're not playing catch up. So I hope so, but also acknowledge that things will fall through the cracks and maybe features that you asked for might not be brought in at least immediately. But it is my goal to make sure that no vendor gets left behind that wants to integrate. As long as you want to send your stream to YouTube, we've got an open ear.
Awesome. That sounds very encouraging. That's good to know. Let's talk a little bit about YouTube gaming. And actually, while we're here on this events topic, there is, I can see this comment. Can you show us on the screen how it's done? So this is the question about events and how to schedule them. If you don't mind, I can show real quick how that could be done from Restream's perspective of things. Let me actually share my screen.
And while you're sharing that, we have, and this could be something, Anya, that we align on after, to make sure that we share the resources out, because YouTube has just launched a bunch of educational tools and videos around step-by-step how this is done, depending on how you want to go live.
Absolutely. So we will definitely share, and sorry for the infinity. I mean, everyone loves the infinity cycles. But I just wanted to real quick mention that, we will absolutely add the links to the resources, because we'll be talking about copyright today. We'll be talking about how to set up events. We'll be talking about some other things. We're about to transition into YouTube gaming and what's, the options in the future for that. So we will definitely share a lot of links in the comments for this video. So stay tuned for that. All right, back to my infinity screen. Just real quick here. We just released this feature. If you are on your Restream dashboard, and of course mine is going to look crazy because I'm live right now, but this is my dashboard, right? Like with all the channels that I'm live on.
You're doing a live demo. This is you're risking a lot here.
I know. Well, I'm also on like a wired connection for internet, so I'm not too worried about Wi-Fi and bandwidth. Okay. So that's why I got it plugged. But there's if everything breaks, sorry, but we tried for our community. So right here there is an event section that you can see, and if you click on this events, which is this little kind of like a calendar with a star thing. This is my event that is live right now. So, I mean, I can actually enter it, but I'm not going to do that because that might actually break things because I'm already live there. But I can also create a new one. And right here, all I need to do is create a title and choose the time and the day when I'm going to go live. Let's say I'm going to go live tomorrow, 2:48 p.m. Chicago time. Perfect. I can also upload an image, any image that, those are videos. So anyway, you can do that. And then when you select next, you will be toggling in all the channels that you want to go live on. And then if you hit save, that is going to immediately create that event and publish it on all those channels. Now, the channels that you will be selecting should be able to support the event creation to begin with in order for this to work. So as of right now, that's YouTube with Warren here and Facebook. LinkedIn is potentially going to support that in the future. They are going to announce that when that's ready. As soon as they are ready, we will be able to support that as well. Periscope and Twitch currently do not support event creation. So even if you create that event and toggle those options in, what's going to happen is you are just going to go live, just push a live stream directly there whenever you go live. So this is how you schedule your event from Restream's dashboard.
And the person asking about scheduling an event probably knows the benefit of scheduling in advance just for promotional purposes, right? Like if you're doing concert for day 1, day 2, day 3, you might have 3 different promotional campaigns for every day, and you don't want to have to wait until the stream is live to start launching those. So I don't want to underemphasize. I know, there are consistent URLs and like consistent ingests on other platforms, but like I don't want to undervalue or undersell the importance of scheduling your stream in advance.
Absolutely. And then there's also a question here from Eric. He is asking about about the recording of the events. And again, hate to take it away from our YouTube conversation, but real quick here.
I learned a little bit too, by the way, about that LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
Scheduling, yeah. So
it's very new. It's a brand new feature. So for recordings, if you go to your dashboard right here, so you have to we have like the key features here, but then there's also this little cloud. If you click that, that's your recordings. So right here you will have the recording of all the videos, and you can download the whole video and audio only if you're trying to repurpose for podcasts. So this is how you can repurpose your content later on. If that's your thing to like push it on podcast, that's what you can do. Or you can download it as a video on demand and then, make little clips, download it anywhere else, publish it as a video on demand, all that good stuff. So Eric, I hope that answers your question. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about YouTube gaming. That's one thing that, a lot of people were curious about. So there a big portion of Restream community are creating gaming content. A lot of people on YouTube are also gamers. So can you tell us a little bit about how the future of YouTube gaming is looking?
The future of YouTube gaming is like blindingly bright. One thing I want to call out though, it happens a lot. Gaming and live get used interchangeably. Which can be the case for other platforms, but for the most part, like live that I work on includes gaming. It's news, it's music, it's events, it's sporting, it's religious, it's all the verticals. It's technology. So I can talk to a little bit about, but I'm not the gaming expert. Like that's a totally different bubble. But live streaming gaming and live streaming gameplay is absolutely exploding on YouTube in the amount of people doing it, the amount of streams being launched, but also like some of the major names that you see moving from platform to platform on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. So for YouTube gaming, do you recommend any resources for people who are trying to learn a little more, like how to optimize their settings if they're trying to do the game, how to improve their discoverability, their monetization, all that good stuff that gamers are specifically interested in? Is there a good resource on YouTube that we can share later?
So there is, we have what we call Creator Academy, which teaches you inside your vertical some of the best practices for going live, creating content, from sound, lighting to third-party overlays and integrations. I encourage you all to kind of go there and walk through those resources. Small videos with snackable sort of questions and quizzes at the end that'll just sort of get you thinking in the right direction as to what tools to integrate to your gameplay and setup. In terms of like a strategy on discoverability, I would say that consistency is key. If you're going live once or twice a year, then your success is going to be defined by how many people you can motivate to watch your stream at one given point. But if you're going live like Restream once a week, then you can start to build an audience. You can start to like condition an audience to show up every Friday at 11 or every Friday at 8. to come back, and then you can start making plans around that, and you can sort of build interactive games and schedules around that sort of stuff. One real quick tip that I would say is, like, if you're a gamer, Gamescom was yesterday, and E3 and or the Game Awards, all these other gaming related big broadcast launches are happening. You should probably think about being live also, because when people are finished with that, they're going to say, what else is on? And you want to be that what else is on. Similarly, like I would mention, the Republican National Convention was yesterday. If you're a podcaster or political commentator, you probably want to have peripheral content ready to stream or be streaming simultaneously, so that when people go from one conversation to the next, they can hop into your stream and see what you're talking about. So it's always a good strategy to plan your stream around major events, because there will be some sort of, residual click-through associated with it.
Awesome. So let's address the elephant in the room, the copyright thing. We promised to talk about this a little bit. I know. I love how you're just like, so we even have a question for that, and I'll also word it slightly differently. The question for you is like, hey, Warren, is there a license I can buy to cover copyright? That's like a straightforward one. Mine sounded more like, hey, what are the steps that the content creators, specifically the ones who are in gaming or in music, DJs, musicians, or anybody actually, like anyone who wants to enhance their streams with music, what are the right things for them to do in order to not get copyright claims, in order to not get strikes, and do the right things for the authors and right holders for music?
So what I would say is there a general license you can buy? Not to my knowledge. And I'd be careful about anybody selling that, because I'm not really specifically sure what exactly that entails. But the good rule of thumb there is to make sure that you're streaming content that you have the rights to. Similarly, for the intro here, they know that they have the rights to that music, so that they're not going to be flagged or taken down or given a strike by whoever the owner is or was. If you're unsure, a good way to do that is to test it out, right? Test that piece of music or asset on a completely different channel, on a throwaway test channel, just so that you can see whether or not you generate any claims or strikes. But the best way to make sure that you don't get struck is to get permission from the content owner. And if you have permission from the content owner of that, the person who's generating these strikes or these claims, they should be able to whitelist your channel against takedown. So they have like this tool that says channel A is okay to use my content. They should be putting you into that listing so that you don't see these flags. You should be talking directly to the content owner, because honestly, it's their content. They have the rights to do what with it they want to. We would encourage them to like not strike and maybe just sort of like flag, but again, it's their content, and you have to, adhere to their best practices and how they want it to be used. You wouldn't upload a video that doesn't belong to you, or a music video or something like that, and expect it to work. You shouldn't expect it to work on a live stream in the same way.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think that most creators do want to do the right thing, right? Like they don't want to necessarily take someone's music and like not give them credit. I think what some confusions is coming from is like, okay, so let's say, let's give you a different example. For example, if I'm a fitness trainer, right? And part of my thing, there's my sequence. I'm teaching people how to do yoga, Pilates, whatnot. And I have the popular music that is, of course, copyrighted that I want to play during my training session. But it's my training session. Or it could be my dance that I, set with this music. What is my best practice? Like, what are the steps I need to take? Do I need to contact the label that owns the song? Or is there anything I can do on YouTube that kind of like streamlines this process for me so I can actually safely and confidently go live with that music that I also want to promote as part of my show?
Yeah. Yep. So I actually had given advice on this as a really practical broadcast step, because it was a work from home exercise team. And the solution that we settled on was to have them generate their workout playlist independent of the platform and share it to their viewers, so that they're not broadcasting it over the airwaves. They're going to the place that does have the rights, and it's in sort of a playlist fashion so that they're all in sync with the video and the music, but not necessarily transmitting it over the airwaves. So that was kind of like one practical step that we had taken. I do see a question around sort of like DJ and track mixing.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So like, yeah, if I'm a fitness instructor, I can totally see that's actually a cool workaround. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yep.
That is brilliant. Like, hey, here's my Spotify list. Let's go and start it all together. 3, 2, 1, go.
Yep.
And now you have the music when I'm doing my thing, and you can actually sync it. But what if I'm a DJ? And in that case, it kind of kills the idea. Like, hey, I'm gonna be DJing, and here's the list. You play it on your own. So how do these guys?
So now with this DJ question, I feel like I'm like walking on lava, because I'm not the policy expert. You should consult with your advisor. You should make sure everything is in line with what you're trying to do. But I think there are some uses around, if the mix is original enough that it's yours, like if you're adding or taking away enough, then you should be fine. But if you're mixing top 40, you can't expect to not be given a flag for that, right? Because that's Drake's song. You just incorporate it into your playlist, right? You didn't add anything to it. You didn't remix it in any way, right? Like that's who that belongs to.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually I know there are a lot more questions on copyright that are not necessarily YouTube related at all, because let's face it, other platforms have that problem too. Facebook is known for having a lot of copyright issues for musical creators, and there are other platforms that can flag you if you are not doing the right thing. So we are actually planning a Q&A session with copyright experts, like specifically people who help people, creators and streamers, to overcome copyright issues. And like they would be breaking down like specific steps, what kind of companies you can work with, who can help you to get those licenses, or who can apply and file those permission requests on your behalf, and things like that. That all exists. Actually, there are a lot of services that offer that, because there is a huge need for that for especially now during the stay home, self-isolation.
And I completely understand that, a DJ streaming themselves in their bedroom might not have the resources to reach out to a major label and even ask, or even offer to want to pay to use it. So I'm thankful that those services exist, and I feel the pain. We all understand and feel the pain, and you're not in a silo, even though you don't see any sort of outbound practical steps coming from us. We do understand that this is a pain point, and we are looking for ways to help.
Once you got flagged, that's another question that we get in Restream support quite a bit, and I think it's going to be interesting to at least like touch on that a little bit. Once you got flagged because you did something, let's say because you were not aware, or you thought you did the right thing but it didn't really work out, just like DJ G right here is saying, but remixes get flagged. So sometimes I guess it depends on the algorithms, and like certain level of remixing can still not pass that algorithm. What are your steps? What do you need to do in order to kind of like restore your channel, and kind of like what are your options in terms of making it right afterwards?
If you're streaming, you should keep an eye on the live control room, because before we take any action against it, we're going to say, hey, because if you're doing a cooking show, you might have Alexa playing something in the background that you don't know, but your microphone is picking it up and it's transmitting it. That actually happens, right? Some big conference is doing a conference hall and they're playing Bieber in the background, and they pick it up like, wait, you can't do that. So we have to plan to put slates over that stuff. But if you're in the live control room, we're not just going to be like, strike, done. We're going to give you a notification. We're going to say, hey, we've noticed that you're streaming this content you don't have the rights to. Please stop. And give you time to address that. But if it goes on for an extended period of time, we're going to say, okay, we gave you the option. You didn't do it. We're going to have to take it down. It's our obligation to take it down.
Yeah.
So please pay attention to the live control room if you're doing anything involving music.
Yeah, that's a great advice, actually. And another thing that I noticed that one could do, also, of course, not in case if you got strike, but a lot of times you just get pieces of your video blocked. You just not so it doesn't YouTube doesn't take down your whole video. It just says, okay, so this piece we're not going to show it because it plays original music. So what you can do afterwards is you could, I guess, cut those pieces, like those parts of your stream, remove them, and then that should take care of the situation if that's not a regular issue that you're experiencing. Is that correct?
I think so. I don't have much. So there are two different thresholds, right? There's live and then there's VOD. And then once it finishes being live, it's out of my hair and I don't really see it or understand the process. But I do think that there are options to resolve immediately or file a dispute. One of the options may be to mute those segments of the I think you might be accurate about that. Again, please research. I'm not the product specialist in this area. So, but I think you might be right about that, Anya.
Awesome. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, well, that was great. A couple of questions that I wanted to take from, and I see like people got super active when it came to the copyright thing. This is, oh yeah, let me quickly remove this guy.
Sorry,
my Alexa just broke up. That is brilliant. That is amazing. I'm a musical artist, licenses their songs at YouTube, and I stream the actual YouTube URL and show everything on the YouTube live screen. Is it a copyright violation?
So people think, I think the spirit of this question is like, I give credit to the artist in the description. Like, I don't think that's at issue. I think the transmission and the distribution over the player is the problem. And again, I want to preface that I'm not the policy expert. So I can't give you a firm answer, but I think that's the spirit of why that's happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so the best way to make sure you play it safe is to research, do your homework, and do your absolutely best to know that you can back up that you have the right to play this music with some kind of documentation. Either it's done through a third party that helps you to license music, or you verify that through YouTube resources. But the best way to actually accomplish that is to make sure that you do a little bit of homework. Then you don't have to deal with the consequences of being blocked. Charles here is asking, any new or unique trends you see in live streaming? That's a good one.
Definitely, due to the COVID era, have seen a large uptick in educational streams and co-streaming streams like this, where there's picture-in-picture of people having conversations. There are a lot more talking head streams that I'm personally noticing. I don't have the data to back this up, but just kind of as someone who uses the platform every day, this is what I see as a trend. And also, you know, gaming streams are seeing an uptick too.
Absolutely. Let's talk about COVID-19 a little bit and how that affected the whole situation on YouTube. Like from a Restream perspective, we did experience a huge spike in content creators joining Restream movement, creating accounts and starting streaming. That makes a lot of sense because everyone was stuck at home and everyone was kind of in this situation of like, okay, if I want to stay relevant, if I want to stay connected to my community, if I want to continue to do what I do, no matter whether it's if I'm a chef and I'm trying to make a cooking show, if I'm a teacher, I'm trying to educate, if I'm a trainer, I'm trying to get to my workout sessions. So of course there was this big spike for all of us. What have you seen this similar thing on YouTube? And
oh my God. My life is you can map the stress in my life associated with COVID cases, I'm pretty sure. So prior to COVID-19, right, like part of my job is to say, yo, you should send your content to YouTube because XYZ. We would host it. We take a step out of your workflow because you're probably going to archive it here anyway and blah, blah, blah. Here are the tools and all that stuff. But then COVID hit and like the floodgates opened and, you know, all those people, it's as if everyone I was asking to stream to YouTube stampeded over to YouTube. So it was not really ready for the influx and the influx in the variations of the stream, from user generated content to big brands that were acknowledging that like, this is something that we need to do. They went from having it something that they do to making it a staple of their event and or presentation. So it's definitely seen, COVID has shifted a lot of people's priorities in terms of what they want to put on the platform and what they think they should be streaming. Because a lot of these, just even in-person keynote events, have gone virtual. From I don't want to get into specific conferences and stuff, but they've really had to change how they bring in speakers or how they do product reveals and launches and things like that. So it's definitely been interesting to see how teams adjust, and also interesting to see how unprepared certain teams, partners, and companies were to use live streaming as a part of their repertoire.
That's a very interesting question, because I think we can relate a lot here to Restream, because we probably saw a lot of the same companies and brands coming in and being like, oh my gosh, we need to do something about this, stay home thing. We're going to stream our webinar, talk, product launch, whatever, right? So what were you, from your experience, from YouTube live streaming experience and perspective, what were you seeing that the brands are trying to solve with live streaming? What was the business problem that they were trying to address, based on what you've been seeing with the streams on YouTube?
Oh man, good question. I think they were still trying to let people know that their products were still launching and that things were still moving on schedule. That's a good question, because less so for brands and more so for events. I actually feel unprepared to answer specifically on what brands are looking to solve for. But
well, I think you made a great point that like staying relevant and staying present was very
basically
important for people. And what we noticed on our end, I can say that a lot of companies that traditionally were not necessarily seeing live streaming as part of their strategy at all.
Yep.
They were talking about, hey, we are not a digital brand. We are a product. We're a physical retail store, for example. Or we are a big company. We have this enterprise, clients that we talk to them in person. We fly, we make deals, we like that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, those people realized, okay, so traveling is not an option. Making an offline event is not an option. Having a retail store open for a lot of places for a long time was not an option. So what are we going to do? And I think that was an interesting, in our experience, it was an interesting shift from like, okay, so everyone who was not a digital brand all of a sudden realized that you got to become a digital brand or vanish, right? Like, or become relevant. And I thought it was very interesting to watch how people are figuring that out. Maybe you have any fun stories about how people were like, okay, so kind of like those Zoom stories, when people are like, okay, so now we're all doing this virtual meetings, but virtual meeting is for a close group of people. Live is for everybody. Like, so
I like have this hypothetical scenario in my mind, is like some big manufacturing brand that would just do streaming marginally and divert no resources to it whatsoever. When COVID hit, the two people in that department instantly probably got a raise and like got a whole bunch of headcount, and like they were the center, focal point in like their board meetings. That's how I entertain myself, is because that's what it feels like. A lot of teams weren't ready to pivot, and the ones who did manage this well had already integrated live streaming to their catalog. It wasn't, what they were focusing on, but it was a larger presence prior to COVID than just kind of getting off the ground. What do we need? What kind of gear do we need? Can you, like, a lot of the calls I got, or a lot of the consultation works I did, were to like help people figure out what kind of hardware to put in their studio. Like, well, what have you been doing up until now? Like a laptop and an encoding software. It's like, oh man, okay, like what's your budget? And that's a step further than what the scope of our team is. But we want to be good players in the live industry, and we assume that content's going to wind up on YouTube. So we would say, hey, here's what works. Here's kind of like a segment of gear that fits your price range. Here's a software that does what I think you need it to do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room. Somehow it sounds like, oh gosh, this is so obvious, right? There's so much information online about what kind of things you need. There common sense things like, yeah, you need good lighting if you want to look good. You need a good mic if you want to sound good. But at the same time, it's amazing how much kind of like hand holding and walk through people kind of need and expect from both us and end platforms
I
in
think
that sense.
from the like the big company ecosystem, people, there's this innate feeling that you need to spend a lot of money to have a professional looking live stream, and they don't feel comfortable if I tell them here are a bunch of free resources, right? They feel like they need to spend X amount to get the highest quality, output. But that's honestly, from traditional media to streaming, like that's the biggest change. Like as long as you're willing to expend the gray matter to figure out a solution, you can save a ton of money on your studio and on your workflow. Like you don't need to have a crazy amount of overhead.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, quick example right here. I started streaming when COVID-19 happened, primarily because I wanted to test the studio. My main job is not necessarily a host of a show. I primarily work with influencers and content creators in terms of like helping us to spread the word about Restream and, the services and the opportunities we give to content creators. So I started to use Studio just to understand it better. And my whole setup started with just my laptop and Logitech web camera. Then I added this AKG microphone, which the only reason why I added it is because I was interviewing someone who was a professional radio host and podcaster, and I just made a decision that I'm not going to sound like rubbish next to this guy who's going to talk about great sound. So I bought this microphone, and then I got the lights, the Elgato, the two lights, and those were none of those things were like enterprise level expensive. I believe the mic was under $100 or around. The lights were about $200. The Logitech cam is under $100.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's it. The rest, all the overlays and things that you can see, that's the Restream Studio. That is, potentially free, or if you want your branding, that's I believe $49 a month. So, it's all accessible.
The trajectory you had with, starting with a webcam and then adding the microphone, then adding the lights, that's what creators do over the course of months after they kind of dial in their process, and you had to like essentially condense it down. I have walked into production studios where there are Carl Desser Logitech webcams mounted to tripods, covered, like secured with gaff tape. Like you can make it look good. It doesn't need to be, like I don't want to mention any specific brand, but it doesn't need to be like a high-end fixture in order to make it look good.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's important to start small and not make this mistake of, first, let me build this amazing, perfect studio with green screen and all the lights and the teleprompters and 500 assistants and people with like powder that like get rid of the shiny things on your face. And that's when we can do the product launch. Yeah. No, you can do the product launch with just a very basic setup. And then if you see traction, if you see that people are reacting to your comment, they like what you have to say, they enjoy interacting with you, then you can start adding on and building up, and eventually maybe end up in that super amazing Hollywood style studio. Who knows? All right. So I had the last question for you about what's up with the ninjas, but I guess you already answered that in the beginning. Yeah. So is that just the nature of your of the teamwork that you kind of have to do all kinds of things and kind of be undercover? Is there any other story?
You're not going to see our names in credits, and we're not going to have like prominent display anywhere. But if you're watching a keynote live stream on YouTube, me or someone from my team is involved with at least being in an advisory capacity to make sure that they're doing everything the right way, and that also our infrastructure team is aware and prepared for the capacity of whatever that stream is going to be giving us in terms of viewership. Whether it's millions of concurrents or whether it's just a few thousand, like we're prepared, we're behind the scenes, and we're ready to basically solve your problems in a ninja-like style.
That is awesome. I love that. I love ninjas. I love the style of work, and I really appreciate what you guys do. Like, I mean, this is a lot. Like for us as your partner, as an integrated third-party application that allows to stream to YouTube among other platforms. It is extremely important to have someone like you who we can talk to, and we really appreciate all all the support and all the love that you give to your partners and users, just content creators and brands. You do so much.
I'm gonna take this highlight clip and I'm gonna send it to my manager. So
yeah, please. I'm gonna download that recording from how I just showed earlier, and feel free to repurpose that. No, you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's important to remember how many people are actually there behind the scenes trying to make your live videos great. But first of all, the main person who can make a live video great is you, right? Just show up, be positive, and make it work.
Make the content, and then everything else will fall in. If you have an idea for a stream, if you think, hey, this is cool, I should stream it, odds are you should stream it. I think 2018, if you told me that the largest live stream on the platform was going to be a giraffe giving birth, I'd be like, what are you, crazy? What are you talking about? But if you think the content you're streaming is useful to you, to at least document, other people are going to think it's valuable to watch along with as well. So I would say start with the content and then plan everything else around that.
Would you mind sharing which camera you're using? There's a question from Eric here before we.
Totally. So I'm connected to my Mac laptop, and I am using a Canon EOS Rebel T with the webcam utility. So at the beginning of COVID, Canon expanded their webcam utility to include their entire DSLR camera system. So as soon as they did that, I dumped my webcam and I hopped on that train.
And you look amazing, by the way. The moment you showed up, I was like, wow, this is some crisp video. I should probably do that too. Yeah, I'm just on the regular Logitech web camera today, but I am thinking about upgrading. That's going to be my, iteration 6, I guess.
Slow iterations. Hell yeah. Heck yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that's going to be our show today. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, for jumping into the chat. We are going to share some more helpful resources today. And I am going to toggle you out for
T6.
T6. Yeah, that's right. T76. Okay, perfect. So thanks everybody. My guest today was Warren Reid. He is from YouTube Live Solutions and the live streaming ninja, as we recently discovered, working undercover, making your live streaming on YouTube easy and awesome. All right, so I am going to hide you for a second. Please feel free to hang out. We'll get back after we finish. And this is it. I just wanted to one more time say thank you, everyone, for showing up today. Thanks for great questions. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for being patient with the copyright thing. We are going to share more resources on that, and I know that's an issue everyone wants to learn more about. So we are preparing a special stream and Q&A session just for that. Hopefully someone from YouTube and maybe from Facebook is going to join us on that one. So that's kind of something that we're kind of trying to prepare for you. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Have a lovely rest of your evening. And I will see you next Friday for Friday Live show. Cheers.